Thank you. As chair of the Southampton School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12, pursuant to executive order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there's no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the Southampton School Board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in this meeting through dialing the phone number 646-876-9923 and webinar ID 928-8437. 5317, or by clicking on the website which was listed on the agenda. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the SAU 21 office at www.sau21.org. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-926 8992 extension 103 or email at revans@sau21.org. In the event the public is unable to access this meeting, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law.
Jim Keim.
Present and by myself.
Rebecca Burdick.
Here by myself.
And Sharon Gordon.
Here and by myself.
I have the roll call taken.
Okay, great, thank you. Just bear with me. I have board docs up, just give me 1 second. All right, next on the agenda is consideration of the minutes for the September 3rd, 2020 meeting. Does anybody have any comments or about the minutes or adjustments? Yeah, I was fine with them as well. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the minutes on September 3rd as written.
I second.
Jim Keim.
Yes.
Rebecca Burdick.
Yes.
And Sharon Gordon.
Yes.
I have that vote recorded.
Great, thank you. Next on the agenda is update on the return to school plan. Dr. Lupini?
Yeah. Rhonda, can you allow me to share my screen? Thank you. So let me see if I can do this now. That's the wrong one. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to go back to here. Put that up. Okay. Great. So thanks, Jim. So what I want to show you is what we sent out to families all across the SAU in every school. This is the decision matrix that we're using primarily to communicate, where each school is in terms of being in person or staying in person. I think the major emphasis here is to show people that this is complicated. I hope this matrix and this explanation that we're going to do at each school district in October communicates that. So I want to walk you through what in your school is a slightly more simple exercise, an easier exercise, but I think helpful nevertheless. So we looked at a number of factors, including the community spread of COVID by town, the positive COVID results within a school community, The staff absenteeism and leave requests that we're operating against in terms of Americans with Disabilities Act requests or requests under the FFCRA, the Families First COVID bill. Availability of space given social distancing guidelines, which you've heard me explain a couple times, at least as a math problem. We had classrooms, they had this number of students in them. We now have to configure those classrooms differently, and so we can only have a lesser number of students in that classroom. And so we have to be able to make that new number work. Student absenteeism, including requests for the Remote Learning Academy, and it's that Remote Learning Academy one that's really important to us now. We've said since June and July that if we didn't have the right number of students that requested a remote experience, that would cause problems in terms of that space requirement, unless we were able to go out and find additional spaces. Now for the fall, that could be creating outdoor spaces, but that's going to expire on us fairly soon. So that means, could we find other spaces? We're going to have a conversation with the Northampton board at 6:30 that's going to be more on that piece of, if the middle school is to come back, it's going to be really focused on, can we find other spaces, because we don't have enough room in the building because of the way we spread out the elementary. And then the last is compliance with protections. That is, are people, when they're in the building, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are they filling out the application in the morning to clear themselves to come in? And in most of our schools, that's been a very positive experience. So you can see that for your school, the number of cases in town is one or fewer. We only have one community that's actually in the yellow on that, and therefore that makes Winnicott in the yellow, because Winnicott ends up being being all of our communities combined. We haven't had any situations, I'm knocking on wood as I say this, within the school that would put the school into anything other than the green. So we're very positive situation there. Staff absenteeism and leaves are at a point where we can actually run the school and run the school fairly comfortably. Michelle might not completely agree with that, but more comfortable than some. It's not been an impediment to bringing students in person. Availability of space is in the yellow, because we have a number of classrooms that right now, even with the number of students who've requested Remote Learning Academy, a number of classrooms that are right up against the number that we can take. In fact, we had to move one and utilize the gym to actually make that work. So that's yellow. We're watching that. Too many more students that would choose that in-person option, and we would have a different set of problems. Requests for the Remote Learning Academy are right where they need to be. They allowed us to open. There were enough students within your regular student population that it put us in the green and allowed us to open. If that were to decrease at the end of the first trimester, and that's something we're concerned about, that would cause us a problem and have to relook at the matrix as it applies to your school. And compliance with protections, everybody's doing what they should be doing. Michelle reports that people are filling out the application in the morning, people are maintaining social distancing, people are wearing masks, all of those kinds of things to make it work. So all in all, a good report that allows us to continue to be open in person at your school. We're posting these. We're going to do this every 2 weeks. We're going to send them to parents and staff every 2 weeks. And where there are changes, we're going to make sure that we note them for you in a timely fashion. We're going to post them on websites, all those kinds of things, along with a letter that went out explaining it. This explanation I've just provided you, we're going to take that video and post it with the matrix so that people can hear my explanation of walking you through it, and hopefully that'll be helpful to them if they weren't able to join us for the meeting tonight. But this is really our effort to make sure that we keep people informed as to where we are. Now we have 3 schools, that started in a remote situation, and we're going to begin next week to revisit where we are with those. 2 of those schools are out because of the staff absenteeism and leave issue. In other words, for their matrix, they're in the red. One of the schools is an availability of space. That's Northampton Middle. They're in the red in availability of space. And so what we're going to begin to do next week is to revisit our assumptions on those and see if we can create some kind of a timeline that brings them to some sort of in-person experience, certainly bringing them in more. Although kids are coming in now, students who have IEPs, students who have other needs are coming in for in-person sessions now, but we want to see if we can increase that and use this matrix experience as a jumping off point for that. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions. People have been terrific in helping us put this together. Principal have been very supportive in terms of the work that we've tried to do to make sure that we can report to the community. And I will stop sharing if there aren't questions. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have, or if you have questions that you think of as you see it, or people call you, please forward those calls to Michelle or me, and we'll try to answer any questions people may have on the matrix.
I thought it was well put together. I saw the email. I haven't had anybody reach out about it. Obviously, for our school, it's pretty straightforward right now.
Right.
So
It is.
I wouldn't expect that either. So
Thank you.
Can I just ask
Thank
a
you.
question? So the people that are doing the remote learning academy, are you getting feedback from them? I know they had to commit to that was it the first trimester? Are you hearing like, oh, we want to stay with this, or, we're ready to come back in person? Do you know what I mean? Do you have an idea for Barnard, what you think might happen?
I don't for Barnard. David, do you want to answer it sort of generally? And I don't know if you have a sort of specific to the school answer.
So this is a really good question and a really important question, especially considering early December is the trimester. We haven't solicited that information from parents. It's going to be kind of a delicate dance with, asking parents without kind of offering the opportunity to come back face to face, because as we know, if we have too many spill over to the face to face side, it puts us kind of out of business. So we're going to have to come up with a mechanism probably early to mid-October, where we're just going to need to solicit that information in kind of a covert way to really understand what we can do and what options we have. I've heard from individuals right now. I think you guys have about 20 K through 8 enrolled in the RLA. I've heard from maybe 2 parents that are interested in moving back into the face-to-face. Great. They all understand that it's a trimester commitment. They just want to understand what their options are moving forward.
Thanks, Dave.
If it gets to the point where, too many people come back to in-person, would a hybrid model be considered?
So the problem with the hybrid model is it's actually less face-to-face instruction than people are receiving now, whether they're in person or, quite frankly, in the remote model. So, we took that off the table at the beginning. We've actually had that conversation within the last few days about, whether it's in person or remote, or whether there is something in between. The problem with the in between is that, that's only going to be because those, let's say it's the model that Hampton's running, a two day a week in person. Those other 3 days are asynchronous because we don't have another team to devote to those days when kids are remote. We don't have that other team. I suppose we could use Remote Learning Academy, but we're always going to have some number of students who are going to be in Remote Learning Academy. So that's a problem as well. So I think it's difficult. I think what you're seeing, there's no model other than everybody in person without a virus that's going to really satisfy everyone. There's an article in the paper last week about the concerns about the hybrid model in Hampton. So I think it would take a lot for us to sort of get there to figure out how we might be able to make sure we continue to provide something of quality. As you know, we've not been there in the conversations that we've had over the summer. So yeah, I think it would be tough for us to move there.
Yeah.
Because it would be less than.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Any other questions, just let me know.
Thanks, Bill.
Mhm.
Next on the agenda is the principal's report. Michelle.
Hi. Yeah, sorry. So things are going really well here. The students are doing a great job. I'm so pleased with how they are responding to this. They're really good about wearing their masks. They're really good about social distancing. We don't really have to give them very many reminders. They're doing a great job. Parents have been so supportive, which has really helped. We rarely have to make calls in the morning to remind them to do the screening. Staff has been doing the screening. We've started up with our two new initiatives for social emotional learning, the Choose Love curriculum and zones of regulation, and that's going really well. The students are responding really well to both of those. And we're getting ready for our virtual curriculum nights that are coming up next week. On the 6th, 7th, and 8th, teachers will be doing sharing their curriculum and expectations, and also sharing the digital platforms that they're using with parents, so that if we do go remote, parents know how to use those tools. And we will be having parent-teacher conferences on October 22nd virtually. So we're getting things underway, and everything's really going well. Thanks. I did put together a little video for you, if I can share it with you now, just because I wanted you to see what school looks like, because I think you'll be pleased to see how happy kids are. And I know I showed you what the school looked like before kids were here, but I want you to see what an actual school day looks like. So can you share this? Yeah. Can you see it?
No.
No, I think you got to click on which screen you want to share. I think. Because you have permission now, right?
I do.
Okay.
I don't know, it's not letting me. What do I push now, Rhonda? I'm doing my desktop share.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
And then it should come up, I think, and give you two options, like which screen. What does it look like on your end, Bill? Because I have two monitors, so mine gives me something different.
Yeah, no, that's what I do is when I hit the share, Michelle, it gives me a screen and says, which one of these do you want to share? And you have to have that particular tab open. And then you just click
I have
on
it
that.
open.
You'll share that.
Hold on, let me try.
Okay.
Sorry, you guys.
That's okay.
No pressure.
I'm excited to see the video.
I know. I'm like, look
Like
at us.
suspenseful now.
I'm going to the desktop share, right, Rhonda?
Yeah, I believe so. Down at the bottom, it
Going
has
to
a,
share screen.
yeah, share
Wow.
screen on Zoom.
Yeah.
And you click the little arrow.
Yeah.
And it comes up, and like when I do it, it gives me, it says select a window or an application that you want to share. And there's a lot of different options there that it shows all of the tabs I have open, and then I select which screen.
Yeah, I don't get that. I'm not getting
Michelle,
that.
is it a file that you can email to Rhonda, or?
Oh yeah, I could do that.
Okay.
I can share it. I'll share it with you.
Nice pool map.
That was good, Matt. Do you have it in the Google Drive, or are you going to send it as an email?
It's in the drive. I just sent it to you.
Okay. I have it.
Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody.
Nope, that's okay. Oops. All right, let me pause. Let me share. Do you guys see this?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go to full screen and I'm going to hit play. About 430 by 9, about 480 by 12. And if you notice, you don't get the same. Really?
I like the way that's like set up. We all have like our own desks and computers and stuff, and we get max breaks, and the teachers come to us. I miss sleeping in, but it's nice to have a different like environment.
Excited to be back. It's so nice to have the kids in school and to be able to set up our routines and get to know them.
I like coming to school because we get to see each other and interact with people.
I think schools are really cool because I get to see all my teachers and friends.
I'm really excited to have children in person as opposed to teaching remotely. So much more connection that you have with them and focus. I'm really enjoying adapting to slow resources that provide comfort, and I hear children sharing some of the things that
I like being back at school because I get to see everyone like physically, not like virtually.
Sorry about the sound went out on that a little bit, but
That was great. Thank you
everybody's
for
just really happy to be back. So the kids are so happy to be here. It makes it all worth it.
I think every child that I've talked to, that I've seen around, has been so grateful to be back in school. It's been and then at least in a small sample size, but every single one says they'd much rather wear a mask and be at school than, the alternatives. So
Yeah.
it's been good. Thank you and everybody there for getting them in there.
Thank you.
Becky or Sharon, do you have any questions?
I'm not crying, you're crying.
I don't have any questions. It was great. It's nice to see that all the teachers seem happy and the kids are happy. I'm jealous that your kids are all in school.
And then do we still expect to see the Chromebooks in the next couple weeks?
Oh yeah, we heard from the company that they'll be at the distribution center on the 9th. So we've been calling them. I think they're sick of us because we call them almost every day. And we keep reminding them that we want them right away. So we're hoping by mid-October, by the end of October at least. Kyle thinks he can get them loaded up and ready in less than a week. So we can get them out in students' hands pretty quickly.
Great.
What's the plan, Michelle, I know right now the windows are staying open, and what are you kind of thinking, like, as it gets colder?
Eventually we're going to have to shut the windows because it's going to be too cold. But we have opened up the ventilation system in there, so that should help. And we'll still try to get outside as much as we can. Mm-hmm. That's why we're asking parents to bundle up your kids, and we even had kids out in the rain yesterday. So we'll do the best we can to keep them outside when we can.
Yeah, that's great.
And we'll keep the windows open as long as we can.
Yeah, that's great.
Great. I think that's everything I had. Does anybody else have anything?
Nice job, Michelle.
Thanks.
Yeah, good job. So next on the agenda, I believe, is the finance report. Matt, do you want to run through it?
Sure. So we've included two reports for this month's meeting. The first of which is the fiscal year-to-date expenditure report. There aren't significant changes from last month. I will point out that the high school tuition is an account that we're looking at. We have not been billed yet, but as of today, we can account for 30 students at Amesbury and 6 at Winnicott. So that brings us slightly under our budgeted amount. The other account that we're closely monitoring is special education. So as you know, we do have some additional special education costs, known costs this year. So that's something that we're going to keep a close eye on as we progress through the school year. And if we do need to make a withdrawal from the expendable trust, then we will look at that at the closer to the end of the year. The second report that's included is the 2019-2020 year-end summary. So what this is it's the preliminary audit results from last year's fiscal school year. So as you know, we have an audit firm, Plodzik and Sanderson, who does an outside audit for us on an annual basis. They have reported back to us these preliminary numbers. We won't get the final financial statement until probably the February-March timeframe, but there's no reason to think that these numbers or any of this information will change, and certainly I'll report back if it does. So the bottom line number that we look at annually is the unreserved fund balance. So that's essentially the money that's left over at the end of the school year. There are really two sources of this balance. One is funds that were not expended. So that's the operating budget. So the expenditure report that I just briefly spoke about, it's essentially that. So what's left over at the end of the year, what accounts were not fully expended. In this case, we had just over $30,000 in unexpended funds. This included a surplus in high school tuition, our regular education accounts, transportation, and computer instruction. On the flip side, there are accounts that we went over budget with, and that included employee benefits, our school administration accounts, and special education. So, but the net result was $30,000 in unexpended funds. Another large source of this unreserved fund balance is any surplus revenue. So every year we report to the Department of Revenue what we expect to receive in revenue. So that includes items such as state adequacy funds, special education aid, Medicaid, any donations that the school receives, interest on our bank accounts. And in this case, if we end up receiving more than what we estimated, then that ends up affecting our bottom line. So this past year, we received about $7,300 additional Medicaid funding than we were anticipating. Medicaid was tough, as you recall. The state had put in some regulations that made it uncertain as to whether we would actually be able to collect Medicaid. We did implement some workarounds, and we were able to collect those funds. Additionally, we received some funds from we reported that we'd received funds from FEMA. I included that here because FEMA had indicated to all school districts across the nation that schools would be eligible for FEMA reimbursement due to COVID-19. However, about 2 weeks ago, we received guidance from FEMA that schools were no longer eligible. So I won't speak to the rationale or the political machinations that created this problem. However, those were funds that FEMA had preliminarily approved for us and have since pulled back. So we will not be receiving that $2,000. I just want to make you aware, because that also has ramifications for this current fiscal year, because as you know, we are still working through a pandemic. We still have costs associated with COVID-19. We have costs that we were hoping or expecting to be reimbursed from FEMA at 75% rate, and that will not be occurring. So ultimately, the unexpended funds and the revenue surplus are combined to equal the unreserved fund balance. This past year was $19,031. I will note that $19,000 is after we funded our expendable trusts. So prior to funding those trusts, there was a balance of about $54,000. Additionally, if you add essentially those two numbers, 30,000 plus 10,000, you'll notice, oh, that doesn't equal $54,000. I just want to note that there are other smaller sources of funding that affects that. So, for example, every year we have encumbrances, carryover encumbrances. So if we encumber funds from one fiscal year to the next, but then don't end up spending them, maybe the cost ended up being less than expected, then that balance also goes into the unexpended fund balance. Similarly, if we have a warrant article, so for example, a roof project that comes in under budget, then that surplus also goes into the unreserved fund balance. So there are some other small sources of where that unreserved fund balance comes into play. But speaking of expendable trust funds, the March 2020 ballot did approve funding a few expendable trusts. That included $15,000 to the roof expendable trust, $10,000 to the tuition stabilization expendable trust. Both of those were via raise and appropriation, so that wasn't from unreserved fund balance. However, the ballot also approved $15,000 for the special education expendable trust and $20,000 for the building maintenance expendable trust, which were both sourced from unreserved fund balance. Finally, I will also note that on the ballot, we had recommended closing the generator trust fund, and that did get approved as well, and those funds have been returned, and that will offset the 2020-21 assessment. So those are one of those revenue sources that we report to the Department of Revenue that offsets the assessment, and that was about $10,000. So for your reference, the current expendable trust fund balances for each of those trusts are at, so for special education, it's at just over $162,000 with a target of $400,000. Building maintenance is at just over $57,000 with a target of $150,000. Our capital reserve computers trust is at just about $24,000. Which is right at the target of $21,000. Our tuition stabilization trust is at almost $54,000 with a target of $36,000. And I'll also note, so that's over the target. If you recall, in this 2020-21 budget, we had allocated for $15,000 to be used from that tuition stabilization expendable trust to offset the tuition costs. We had under budgeted that account by $15,000. It's looking right now. It's looking like that account will be slightly under. So we'll have to, again, those are one of those accounts that we're going to have to look at as we go through the year and progress through this year and determine whether we withdraw any funds from that account. But that was included in the budget to be expended. So, there are a lot of unknowns in this, as we work through this pandemic. So we'll see how this year goes, and then we'll make that determination as we get closer to the end of the school year. Our roof expendable trust is almost $53,000 with a target of $100,000. And we finally have a capital reserve building fund at $6,400. I'll also note that there were no withdrawals from any of the trust funds in fiscal year 2019-2020. So in addition to the expendable trust, we also have warrant articles that are not funded via unreserved fund balance, that are raised and appropriated, that don't involve an expendable trust. We only had one at the March 19th ballot. March 2019 ballot for this fiscal year. So when I say this fiscal year, I'm referring to last year, 2019-2020. And that was our teachers' contracts with C. So that CBA was just over $45,000. And that's rolled into the operating budget now that that was approved going forward. And that I will also note that was a 4-year contract. We also, so I had mentioned encumbrances that are carry forward as a factor in determining that unreserved fund balance. And in this case, there was just under $3,000 that were approved in 2018-19 that were carried forward into the 2019-2020 fiscal year. Finally, I do want to touch upon a few audit control recommendations that the auditors came forward with. We had 3 for the 2019-2020 audit. The first of which were reconciliations for our treasurer reports. There were a few of them that were incomplete, inaccurate, and untimely. We worked with the treasurer to resolve those issues, and actually we have a new treasurer who was elected in March of 2020, and we are working with them to ensure that that process is done correctly and in a timely fashion. Additionally, the auditors noted that our policies are outdated and need to be reviewed and updated. As you know, we are aware of this issue. We did form an SAU-wide policy committee back in 2019, and we are diligently working to update those policies. So hopefully, we keep getting new policies we need to update, but hopefully we will get into a more up-to-date status with our policy work. Finally, there was one check that was deposited longer than 1 week after receipt, and really we want to deposit all checks within 1 week. So we are working to ensure that that does occur going forward. So I'd be happy to answer any questions in regard to both the year-end summary for 2019-20 or for our current year expenditures in this fiscal year's expenditure report.
Thank you, Matt. That was really comprehensive. Becky or Sharon, do you have any questions?
I don't. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. You did a good job.
I don't have any either. That was good. Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is public comment. We do have one participant, I believe, watching. If they, we'll give them a minute here. If they, can they raise their hand, Rhonda, if they would like to say?
Yeah, certainly.
Give the participant a minute. If you want, you can raise your hand if you want to say something. Otherwise, we'll move forward. Okay. All right. We don't have anything under continuing business. We do have something out under new business, which is the November school board meeting. Bill, do you want to run through this, or?
Yes, I can. Thank you. So we've been looking at the idea of meeting in person. And as I've explained to each of the chairs, the major issue with doing that was our concern about having a room large enough, a space large enough for both us to do that and the public to be present, because the public has a right to be present. In fact, many places that we've talked to who have tried to do in-person meetings then have a spillover space with live streaming to that space and the ability for people to speak publicly from there. And it's not doing that once that's a problem for us. It's coming up with that model in 5 different places. And so one of the things that was suggested that we've looked at is, well, what if we didn't have to do that in 5 different places? What if we only had to do it in one place? For example, at Winnicott High School. So we've looked at that. We've actually studied using the auditorium, an easy place to get into and out of, an easy place to social distance both the board, all of us, any public that would want to come. There is no RSA that says that you have to meet in your town. It's certainly the best way to do it, but there is no RSA that would require you to do that. We actually believe we can do it on largely the same schedule. We may, on our second night of 2 meetings, in terms of Hampton Falls and Seabrook, we may have to actually add a half an hour in between the meetings, because the space would be cleaned in between meetings. We'd have someone there who would clean the microphone for public comment between each speaker, all of those kinds of things. This is, I'm going to be honest here and say this is as much about our other boards as anything, given that we have new members who've never actually been in the room together. And there's some feeling on our part, and certainly on the part of the chairs in those districts, that to begin to get people in the same room so that we get on the same page in terms of our goals and objectives as an SAU and as school districts is very, very important to us. So we want to propose tonight that we do this in November as a one-time kind of situation to then evaluate. What we've included here tonight are 2 policies, which may not feel like they're related, but one actually talks about your board meetings. And one of the things that Rhonda and I have discovered over the last week or so is that none of the policies on board meetings actually reflect what you're currently doing. That's okay. And the other one is on suspension of policies. So So we want to be formal about this and make it right in case anybody were to object down the road, someone from one of our towns. If that's something that interests you, interests all 5 of our boards to do that in November, we would ask you to vote to suspend your policy BEA on regular board meetings, which would allow us then to hold a meeting, well, first of all, at the times that we've been holding them, and second of all, to hold it at Winnicott High School. It would need to be, by our read of the suspension of policy, it would need to be a unanimous vote of the board in order to do that. So I'm happy to try to answer any questions. And then if that's something you want to entertain, we'd ask you to suspend policy BEA for the month of November.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, traditionally we have not had a lot of attendees at our board meetings. Occasionally there's maybe 1 or 2 throughout the year, people who show up throughout the year. But I think at the same time we have to provide a video form, and access via that as well, just given the circumstances. So I'd be completely in favor of doing it at a designated area that's not necessarily Barnard School. It'd be good to see you guys in person. So
very nice.
I know Sharon and Becky, I don't know what your feelings are on it, but that's where I come out.
Yeah, I'd be definitely open to it. I think it's a good idea.
Yes, I would as well. I guess my only question is, if we do that, do we still have the option to have them, are we doing that solely now, or will we still do them like this too?
We're going to try it in November.
Okay.
And I think we'd evaluate. That's a very good question that I think we would consider after we got through our 5 meetings in November and see how it goes and see what changes in terms of the circumstances.
Okay.
And Bill, aren't we only talking about the actual board meetings for this right now?
Yes, thank you. Only the actual individual school district board meetings. Yes. Everything else would continue in this form. No joint board meeting.
Yeah, it's too big.
Yeah, it's too much.
I think. Okay, well, if that's the case, can I get a motion?
We'd be looking for a motion to suspend policy BEA through the end, I think for now, through the end of November, Rhonda?
Yes, I went ahead and added a motion in board docs if you guys are interested. If you just refresh your screen, it should appear.
So can I get a motion to suspend Southampton School Board Policy BEA regular board meetings for the month of November?
Second.
Who made the first?
Jim.
I asked for a motion, but I guess I could make it. Can I make it? I don't even know.
Yeah.
All right, I made it.
You made the motion.
Okay.
That's fine.
And then who just, I'm sorry.
Becky seconded it, right?
Becky, okay, sorry. Are you ready for a vote?
Yep.
Okay, Sharon Gordon,
Yes.
Rebecca Burdick,
Yes.
and Jim Kime.
Yes.
Okay, I have that vote recorded.
All right.
Right.
Our November
Thank you.
meeting will be at Winnicott High School at 4:30 on whatever date that is.
I think it's November 2nd.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
November.
Oh, it's in here. It's November
Yeah,
5th.
Okay.
got it.
That's the date.
Yeah, so just running through it real quickly, just to wrap up. Next meeting date of the Operations Committee is meeting on Tuesday, October 6th at 5:30. The Joint Board is meeting on Tuesday, October 20th at 6 o'clock. The Joint Board Policy Committee is Wednesday, November 4th at 4:30. As just mentioned, the next Southampton School Board meeting will be at Winnicott on Thursday, November 5th at 4:30. And then the Joint Board Public Hearing meeting will be Monday, November 9th at 6 o'clock.
And Rhonda, we're scheduling another policy committee meeting just to deal with Title IX, right?
I thought we put that on hold, or are we going to do that? Maybe I misinterpreted something.
We'll need to we'll need to get back to you on that because we.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Great.
Jim and Sharon. So I can't. Sharon, are you operations or are you policy? I can't remember which one I am. I thought I was operations, right?
Becky, if you give me just a moment, I can tell you what you are. I have a list here. So Jim is actually operations, and Becky, you're the alternate on that. But you are the policy committee, and you're the policy committee chair, actually.
Oh, good. Excellent.
I always tell Matt, I like that one. That was a good one.
I think you guys all nominated me that for when I was
You're not there. Yes, they did.
Yeah, gonna log in. That's how it works.
Your peers did. We can't.
You're the best, Becky.
Yeah,
right.
I know.
And that's the 4th at 4:30, right? Yep.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Yes.
Yeah, it's on this agenda, November 4th at 4:30.
Yep.
And that will be on Zoom, Becky.
Yes. Great.
Okay. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
Second.
Great. I think everybody's in favor.
All right.
Thank you all. We really appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thanks a lot.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.